But look, let's change pace and go to Australia's biggest alcoholic drinks and pubs group, Endeavour, the owner of Dan Murphy's, BWS and more than 300 hotels. Now, the company was created by the merger of Woolworths liquor businesses, Endeavour and ALH, going way back. It listed on the stock market back in 2021. Woolworths, it still retains 9% of Endeavour, but it did sell 5.5% back in December last year for $636 million. But that sale came just after ALH was fined by the Victorian Gambling and Casino Control Commission for operating 220 gaming machines for 5 weeks without a regulatory tool so gamblers could set limits on the time and the money they spent on those machines. But look, going way back, ALH was actually created by this man, the pub's king, Bruce Mathieson. He bought his first pub back in the mid-1970s. He and then the Woolworths CEO, this man, Roger Corbett, they know each other very well. And eventually, Woolies launched a takeover for ALH and emerged with 75% of the shares. Today, Mathieson is the biggest shareholder in Endeavour, with 15% of those shares. His son, Bruce Mathieson Jr., is on the board, but Mathieson wants another board representative. Strangely, Roger Corbett's former right-hand man, this man, Bill Wavish. But the Endeavour Board and some groups that advise big superannuation funds how to vote have rejected Wavish and Mathieson's approach. So the fight is on and will continue right up to its board meeting on Tuesday week. One man who's kept his silence about all of this but is about to weigh in with a video message to all Endeavour shareholders is the former Woolworths boss and retail legend, Roger Corbett, who joins me now in the studio. Roger, many thanks for your time. This seems like a real mess, I've got to say. Just explain your relationship with Bruce Mathieson.
Well, we did the original deal together and it added dramatically. The share price in this period of time of Woolies, as you know, went from $2.43 to well over $30. Added $30 billion to the value of Woolworths. To many of the large investors, to the institutions, to myself, and to the many staff members in Woolworths that are part of the staff share plan, they made a lot of money. It was a really successful transaction.
OK, so why has this fight come about right now? And what do you sense should happen as we speak?
OK, well, the fight's come about because when Woolworths divested it, they said 2 would be better than 1. Endeavour Drinks would be better by itself. Well, it hasn't been. Its share price has dropped by 30%, gone from circa $8 to circa $5. An enormous loss to shareholders. Now, the important thing about the share price, it has nothing to do with COVID that the Endeavour people are talking about. It's got everything to do with the market's anticipation of where the business will be in the future. That's what a share price is. OK,
so one thing about, say, BWS or Dan Murphy's, which is the big jewel in the crown, I mean, is its business changed, do you think, over a period of time?
No. The business has not changed, and either have the major parameters. This idea of saying I'm a dinosaur and all that stuff is the fundamental principles of retailing are evergreen and stay, and that's to do the best deal for your customer. Bruce Mathieson is saying the hotels are in trouble. He knows better than anyone else. I'm saying Dan Murphy in particular, but also BWS, has completely lost its way. Why am I saying that? When we originally bought it, the characteristics that caused, and Bill was with me the day we bought it, for Woolworths, was that it was a category killer and it was an everyday low-price retailer. That's what drove the expansion. That's what drove the success under Woolworths and a fellow called Tony Leon that ran it for many years. That was where the success was. Big stores, high volume, low margin, great prices on the brands you know and trust. What are the key things that have gone wrong? They've lost the mojo. You've only got to look at the store in Macquarie Street, which is a lovely store. Must have cost millions to set up. It's not low cost. It's not low volume. For Dan Murphy's to be successful, you can't be an everyday low price retailer if you're not an everyday low cost retailer. That's fundamental. OK,
so this is a pretty big thing for you to do as a former chief executive of Woolworths. You've always been pretty circumspect about the strategy of Woolworths. Why have you come out now?
I've come out now for 2 main reasons. One, I'm a shareholder myself, maybe 3. 3 is Bruce Mathieson and I are good friends. He's been saying to me, what can I do about this?
Because he's lost a bomb, right?
He's lost 500 million. So, and thirdly, there's few people that could speak like this. And I feel that I've got a responsibility to the small shareholders. When the chairman is saying there are no problems here, well, the chairman is in denial, or he doesn't know. There are fundamental problems. Unless they are reversed quickly, Dan Murphy will join enormous number of retailers who were big yesterday but are not here today. There are fundamental principles that have underwritten the success of Dan Murphy, and they are being lost.
But what are those comments from the chairman? What do you think those comments say about the chair of the board himself at Endeavour?
Well, look, the board and the chair of Woolworths are people who've obviously had successful careers elsewhere. But looking at them, they haven't got the skills totally amongst them to run a business like Dan Murphy. There's not a retailer.
So this is the board, not at Woolworths, but the board at Endeavour you're talking about?
I'm not talking about the Woolies. No. I'm talking about the board of Endeavour. To resist the offer that Bill Wavish is making, Bill Wavish is a very accomplished guy. He knows these problems. He's not perfect. I'm not perfect. No one's perfect. But he's a very, very capable guy, and he's the skill set that they need. But whether or not Bill Wavish gets elected, the chairman should go. He is denying the reality, telling the shareholders everything is A-OK, everything is not A-OK. I suspect they've got terrible problems with the Peninsula group of products they've got. I think the stores are stuffed with stuff that customers don't want to buy, which comes about when that happens. I think they've got real cost problems in running the business. I think they've got lots of costs coming up as they separate from Woolworths. I think they call it transformation. I think that is going to be an enormous burden unless they get these fundamental arrangements right. They're in for big trouble.
OK, I can't have you here and not ask you this question. You talk about Dan Murphy's having lost its mojo. What about Woolworths? What's your sense as to whether it's lost its mojo or not?
Well, look, I want to preserve my position in regard to Woolworths.
Yep.
I have never made any comments about Woolworths, and Woolworths share price is A-OK, it's doing all right, the dividends are OK. I want to say no more about Woolworths. OK,
so would you go as far as saying Woolworths made a mistake when it decided to basically divest itself of the Endeavour Drinks Group and have it relisted on the stock market?
Well, at this moment, it's certainly been a mistake, hasn't it? 30% down. And the real challenges of Dan Murphy, it is critically Dan Murphy. I think we can get the pubs right with the influence of the Mathiesons on those pubs. If they're let to, have an influence on those, then I'm sure we get the pubs right.
OK, so can I ask one question? There's all those proxy advisors who are telling the big shareholders, the superannuation funds, how to invest. Some of them have said no to Bill Wavish. What's your advice to them?
Well, my advice not so much to them is to the shareholders that listen to them, if I could put it that way. I've done 20 years with proxy holders, and they do a good job. They've got a standard format because they do lots of companies, and in that format, they become, somewhat rigid. But most people in the proxy thing would not understand what I'm talking about everyday low prices, about a category killer and its power of keeping the clarity of marketing. For example, when you're a retailer, you've got to buy well, and you've got to want all your suppliers to supply you. If you go and buy a major supplier, what does your other suppliers say? They say, well, they're looking after their own. And you've only got to walk through a Dan Murphy to see it's stuffed with Peninsula stock that's not branded merchandise. They talk about, Ross, having a world-class loyalty program. So I went into Martin Place yesterday, and I went to buy myself a bottle of gin. I rather like gin. And so I said to the girl, I've got the bottle of gin, Torquay, 10 and $96, which is top price.
Yeah.
And so I said to the girl, we did the transaction, she says, you've got a Dan Murphy loyalty. I got out my Dan loyalty card, and she said, well, thank you very much. I'm glad you're a loyal member. I said, good. So she got out a bag that must have cost $3 or $4 for me to put my gin bottle in, top line, put my gin bottle in. And I got my doc, and I said, that's $96. She said, yes. So I said, what do I get? You said I'm a loyal. What do I get for my loyalty thing? Oh, she said, nothing, sir. She said, I'm sorry. That only comes on our own specials from time to time. Now, I'm not interested that's a nonsense to have a loyalty program that's only on selected products in the store. If the loyalty program's so good, why are the comp stores, which are the fundamental criteria in the business, why are the comp stores so low?
Yeah.
It's a nonsense. And the chairman is finally responsible. He's denying it. So whether Bill gets on or not, in my view, the chairman should go.
Roger Corbett, always good to chat to you. Many thanks for your candour and certainly for opening up to us today. Appreciate it.
My